There we go.
The answer is that it was true. But the thing is, there was only one world. They don't have destruction. Possibility.
Okay, so
Before you leave right away, I just want to ask a question. Since you looked up into all these different things about Shimshon, is there any connection between today, Asa, and the whole thing, Asa and him? Or is it only that he wants credit for the other eye in Olam Haba that isn't in this world? There's no connection. Maybe but not.
okay, where are you sitting? She's coming here. Okay, so let her sit there. I'll move over. I want you to get one. I'm fine. Yeah, you should. This is okay for you. So why don't you sit here? Maybe it's better.
Okay, hello everyone. So first we would like to say that this show is sponsored by Mel David's daughters and son-in-laws in his memory. We all remember him and should be B'ezrat Hashem Le'ilui Neshama. Okay, so I'm not sure if it's the final shiur about Shimshon, but this is definitely the final sosh. It's about Shimshon. And if last week we spoke a little bit about the mystical aspects of Shimshon and his figure, so now we will try to make a connection between Shimshon. Is he considered as a gibor? Is he should be viewed and remembered as Shimshon a gibor? Shimshon ha-shofet, Shimshon the judge, or he has anything to do with Mashiach? So that's what we will try to explore today. So the Torah states in Bereshit in Perek Memtet, when Yaakov gave a blessing to Dan, to his son Dan, so he spoke about Dan and his tribe, and he says, Dan yadin amo ke'achad shiftei Yisrael. The Dan will judge his nation like any other tribe. Yehi Dan nachash alei derech, shfifon alei orach. So Dan will be like a snake. Anoshech ikve sus ve'ipol rochvo achor. That he can bite the horse and then the rider will fall backwards. Lishuatcha kiviti Hashem. Okay, so that's what Yaakov says to Dan. However, at the end of Dvarim, in Perek Lamed Gimel Pasuk Kav Bet, where Moshe Rabbeinu gives a blessing, give a bracha to Dan, it says, "Uledan Amar, Dan gur aryeh yezanek min habashan." So he compared Dan to what? To a lion cub, a gur aryeh. So I guess he grew since time of Yaakov. From a snake, he became a lion. So obviously we need to understand what does it mean, and why there is such a difference between, and what is the difference really between a snake and a lion. So that's what we're going to see a little bit later. Rashi says, Dan yadin amo, inkom nikmat amo miplishtim, kmo yadin Hashem amo. So basically, what does it mean, Dan yadin amo? It's not that he's going to judge his nation, but rather, like what we say, Ki yadin Hashem amo, that Hashem will revenge for his people. Not his people, God forbid, for his people. So Dan, which Shimshon comes from the tribe of Dan, he is going to revenge the Jewish people's blood and sorrows from Plishtim. So that's what Yaakov said to Dan. Ke'achad shiftei Yisrael, kol Yisrael yu ke'echad imo ve'et kulam yadin. So all the people will be with him, and he will basically he will do the revenge for everyone. Ve'al Shimshon nibe nevu'azo. So Yaakov basically prophesies this prophecy on whom? On Shimshon. Ve'od yesh lefaresh ke'echad shiftei Yisrael. What does it mean? Ke'echad shiftei Yisrael. Ke'meyuchad shebashvatim hu David sheba miYehuda. Now, this nobody tribe, Dan, that, as we figured out in the last few weeks, we know nothing about this Shevet. He didn't do anything extraordinary besides Shimshon. This is the only person he was able to produce, which was on a semi-good connotation. We have Pesel Micha, if you want, which obviously it's not flattery. It's not a compliment for the tribe. So here, based on Rashi, he says that when Yaakov gave a bracha to Dan, he says to him, he is going to be Ke'echad Shiftei Israel. What is Ke'echad? Kameyuchad. Like this very special tribe, which is Yehuda. Now, this is interesting. So now Dan, who is the least of the tribes, going to be like Yehuda. Now, we commented about it last week, that when you speak about the way they encamped, even though Yehuda was Barosh, and Dan was Me'asef Lekol HaMachanot, when they basically were in a circle, so you have Yehuda and Dan are basically were together. They closed the circle, they were together. Okay. So we still don't have any understanding of why is he considered as a serpent or as a snake, but let's see the OUisrael. The OUisrael says, Gur Aryeh, right? That's what Moshe said to Dan, that he's going to be like a lion cub. אולי שנתכוון אל שמשון ששיסה הארי כשסה אגדי ואומרו יזנק רמז לצליחת עליו רוח השם ודילג לשסעו כמדלג מהר בשן. So basically he says he's like a lion cub, not that Shimshon is like a lion cub, but rather what Shimshon did to the lion cub. You remember? When he saw this lion, he basically tore him apart, and then the honey came from that. So basically Moshe prophesies that that's what Shimshon will do. And what does it mean, yedaleg? If you remember, every time that we spoke about Shimshon, it says, vatitzlach alav ruach Hashem. That like suddenly, the Spirit of God just like came upon him, and then he awoke. So that's maybe what it means. So that's what the OUisrael says. Comes along the Rashbam, and says, what are you talking about? Dan yadin amo, המפרשו על שמשון לא ידע בעומק פשוטו של מקרא כלל. Says, if you think that this bracha to Shevet Dan is about Shimshon, you have no idea how to learn the narrative. He was very gentle. וכי יעקב בא להתנבאות על אדם אחד שנפל ביד פלישתים וינקרו את עיניו ומת עם פלישתים בעניין רע, חלילה, חלילה. Says, you want to tell me that Yaakov, before he dies, is going to give you a prophecy and a blessing to Shevet Dan that a Shimshon will come out from this tribe and he will do what? Married 3 non-Jewish women, eat non-kosher food, and will die with the Plishtim, and they will take one of his eyes. Is that a bracha? I don't want to hear a curse from Yaakov, right? What kind of a bracha? You really think that that's what Yaakov had in mind? Says the Rashbam, who happens to be related to Rashi. How? His grandson. Okay, he happened to be related to him, and he says even Rashi is wrong. So, what's the bracha? He says, "Achal shivto shel Dan nitnabe, shaya me'asef lekol hamachanot." But rather, he didn't specify a single person, an individual from Shevet Dan, but rather he spoke about the entirety of Shevet Dan, which is what? That he was at the end of the מחנה, וגם ביהושע כתיב, והמאסף הולך אחר הארון, ולפי שהיה הולך כל הימים, בין בימי משה, בין בימי יהושע, אחר כל הדגלים, והיה צריך להילחם עם כל האומות הרודפים אחריהם, לזנב הנחשלים אחריהם בדרך, ולהינקם מן האומות כגיבורים היו, לכך אמר, יעקב דן ידין עמו, ינקום נקמת עמו. Which means, the Rashbam says, I'll give you a very easy, simple, and by the way, makes sense solution. Yaakov saw in his prophetic vision that Dan, Shevet Dan, the entire Shevet Dan, will always be the Me'asef, the last one to go. And even as a Me'asef, you need to know that you have a mission. The one that leads the group obviously is responsible, right? The one at the end of the group also have responsibility. He needs to what? To make sure that he defends the group from the back. Because many times people will go quickly to the front, but they will forget what? The back. So therefore, he needs to protect the back. Says Yaakov to Shevet Dan, I know you're going to be the last one in my trip in the desert, says Moshe, And also later on in the time of Yehoshua, and therefore I bless you to be giborim, to be mighty, to be strong, so you can protect the Jewish people. So it's nothing to do with Shimshon. It's all to do with the tribe itself. כמו כן ידין השם את עמו, דם עבדיו יקום ונקם ישיב את צריו, וכמו ידין בגויים מלא גביעות מהחסרות של ארץ רבה, which means all the psukim that the Rashbam brings shows that what? That yadin means what? Not to judge, so it doesn't talk about an individual judge, Shimshon, but rather ladun is lehilachem, to fight. And therefore, when Yaakov saw that Shevet Dan will be fighters, and they will be at the end of the camp, so they will be the last one to go, so he blessed them with what? With strength and might, so they can fight the enemies. Very simple.
But that would mean that Dan should be the one to destroy Amalek then, because the Amalek did exactly that, tried to,
But he shouldn't destroy Amalek. He can fight them. He shouldn't. That doesn't need necessarily to destroy them. He had to defend them from them, but not to destroy them.
No, I mean,
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think so. I think that it needs to come from Yosef. And I understood what you asked. It needs to come from Yosef and not from Shevet Dan, because Shevet Dan was just placed there for the time of Moshe and Yehoshua. That's it. And Yosef was something for eternity. So, the Gemara in Sotah says the following. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Now, don't be too surprised, okay? You all sit. You're comfortable. Shimshon dan et Israel ke'aviem shebashamayim. שנאמר דן ידין עמו כאחד. Who is that? The one? Like God. This is wonderful, right? We have so many troubles to try to understand Shimshon after these 8 weeks. And we really ask the question so many times, why is he in the Bible? He caused more surahs than good things, right? You go ahead and explain to your kids that you have a judge who really fought for the Jews, and he was married to 3 non-Jewish women, and he gave up his secret for a woman, and then he died with the Plishtim, and no one cared about him, and his parents were not that sophisticated, right? This story is so out of touch with Tanakh. And now we say that what? That this guy is judging nation like Hashem himself, ke'echad. Which, by the way, you understand that Rabbi Yochanan breaks the pasuk. He manipulates the pasuk. The pasuk says what? Ke'echad shivtei Israel. So how does he read the pasuk? Dan yadin amo ke'echad. That's it. What do you do with shivtei Israel? There, the pasuk, Rabbi Yochanan didn't care much, and he manipulated the pasuk in order to have a drasha. But obviously, Rabbi Yochanan knows the stories of Shimshon, and we will need to understand how can you compare Shimshon to what? So to speak, to Hashem. ואמר רבי יוחנן, שמשון על שמו של הקדוש ברוך הוא נקרא. Shimshon was named after God. שנאמר, כי שמש הוא מגן, השם אלוקים. Shimshon from the word shemesh, with the word magen, so you have the nun, so Shimshon, take the vav out, so you can put a cholam aleh. So he was named after God. So he's judging like God, and he's named after God. I thought that the only one who has the name of God in him is Yehuda. Yud Kei Vav Kei, and Dalet is something else, but Yud Kei Vav Kei. And who, okay, so it's only Yehuda. So Shimshon now also named after God. So the Gemara in Sotah says, Ela me'ata lo yimache. So if he's named after God, so you can't erase the name of Shimshon. If you see the name of Shimshon, you cannot erase it, because then you are like mochek Shem Hashem. Ela me'ein shmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not exactly. It's like. Ma HaKadosh Baruch Hu magen al kol ha'olam kulo. Hashem protects the entire universe. Af Shimshon magen bedoro al Israel. Did what?
They say that about every single show.
Agree. So what's wrong here with Shimshon? Now, the only thing that I can tell you about Shimshon, unlike any other judge, no one cared about him. He was not charismatic in terms of getting people to follow him. Not only that people didn't follow him, they extradite him. That we learned in a few weeks before. Which means, unlike any other judge that had followers, Gidon, Iftach, Shmuel, for sure, okay? Ehud ben Gera also have some followers. Shimshon, klum.
Nobody.
Nothing.
Only
So,
The wrong kind of women.
well, I'm not sure even they followed him. I think he followed them. So there is a little difference. So the idea is what? Is that in a way, Shimshon protect all the Jewish people without getting anything in exchange, anything in return. So, okay. So now let's see Bereshit Rabbah. Bereshit Rabbah is also somewhat of an early midrash around the 5th century. Was composed in Israel, 5th, 6th century. So Dan Yadin Amo. What does it mean, Dan Yadin Amo? Kemeyuchat shebashvatim ze Yehuda. So like Yehuda, like what we saw. דבר אחר, כאחד, כיחידו של עולם, he is fighting like God himself, but what does it mean? שאינו צריך סיוע במלחמה. He does not need anyone to what? To help him. שנאמר, פורה דרכתי לבדי. I did it by myself. כך שמשון העומד מדן, so this is how Shimshon, who came from שבט דן, אינו צריך אחרים שיסייעו אותו בלא חרב אלא בלחי חמור. He doesn't need anyone to help him, and he doesn't need any weaponry. He give him a cheek of a donkey, and he will do fine. יהי נחש, יהי דן נחש עלי דרך. So why is he compared to a snake? So he says, כל החיות מהלכות זוגות זוגות. Most of the animals go 2 by 2s. והנחש אינו מהלך בדרך אלא יחידי. Did you see a group of snakes together?
No.
No. You don't want to see them, I understand. But I'm saying, basically, we see always one snake. What?
What about in a pit?
In a pit, yeah, but alei derech, on the path. Look, I'm not an expert on snakes, so I would just take whatever the Midrash says. But I think that when you see them walking, crawling on the earth, so it's one. So that's what he says, and that's what Shimshon did. Shimshon never hang out with any other friends. Okay. דבר אחר, יהי נחש עלי דרך, so he will be like a snake. כשם שהנחש נקמן, כך היה שמשון. So the nachash is a very vengeful animal, and Shimshon was a very vengeful person, but it was for a purpose. והיא נקמה נקם אחת. כיוון שראה אותו יעקב, so when Yaakov saw in his prophetic vision, he saw Shimshon, אמר לישועתך קיוויתי השם, אין זה מביא את הגאולה. This person cannot bring redemption. אלא מגד, שנאמר גד גדוד יגודנו והוא יגוד עקב, לאותו שהוא בא בעקב. הנה אנוכי שולח לכם את אליהו הנביא שהוא משבט גד, לכך נאמר והוא יגוד עקב. Okay. Here we have a beginning of a very interesting thing. Yaakov looks at Shimshon and he says, wow, this is an incredible potential. He fights by himself. He does not need any helpers. He's a vengeful person for the right purpose. He should be what?
A ruler.
A ruler, more than that. He should be maybe Mashiach. He should be Mashiach. But the problem, he says, what? אין זה מביא את הגאולה. Why he can't bring the גאולה? Because he's vengeful.
Like that.
A person like him, who does things out of vengefulness, I would guess, cannot be Mashiach. So therefore, what do you need to bring? You need to bring from God. But Mashiach is not from God. Mashiach is from where? Yehuda. So what Mashiach from God? He says, I'm going to send Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi is, at least according to most of the opinions, he is from Shevet Gad. And he will come from the Akev. What does it mean he will come from the Akev? He will come in an indirect way. Because Eliyahu Hanavi also, he is not the Goel. What is the purpose of Eliyahu Hanavi? הוא מבשר הגאולה. He proclaims that the גאולה is about to come. But he just say, there's going to be a day, יום גדול ונורא, right? And then Mashiach will come. So now we have something very interesting. Look at how many tribes are involved in גאולה. You have Shevet Dan, who at least has a potential. Then you have Shevet Gad. Then you have Shevet Yosef. And then you have Shevet Yehuda. So we have 4 tribes, which is very interesting. 4 tribes. I'm just thinking, רגע. דן is from לאה, נכון? וגם גד. גם גד הוא מלאה, נכון? לא, בא גד. לא, הוא גם מלאה.
Everybody except Binyamin and Yosef.
No, I'm talking about the maidservants. The maidservants. The maidservants. We have from maidservants for Bila and Zilpa also had children, but they are related to Leah and Rachel. So Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Vasher. But who is Gad from Rachel?
No.
אשר כי ישרוני בנות עץ לאה. Naphtali is Rachel, for sure. נפתולי אלוקים נפתלתי גם יכולתי. God is... We don't need Google, we have Tanakh. Okay? Zilpa, God is from Zilpa, so that's Leah. And Dan?
It's Leah.
Dan is Leah, no? Yeah, לא הלך. Okay, sorry. Okay. So basically we have 4 tribes who are involved with the Geula. Okay. Says Ramban, לישועתך קיוויתי Hashem. By the way, you see that all the commentators, everyone disagree with the Rashbam. They all think that Yaakov gave a blessing to whom? To Shimshon, not to the entire Shevet. So then he says, לישועתך קיוויתי Hashem. לא היה בכל שופטי ישראל מי שנפל ביד אויביו זולתי שמשון שהוא הנחש הזה. If you look at all the book of Judges, the only judge that fell in the hands of his enemy was Shimshon. All the other judges won the war and survived. I mean, some of them were maybe assassinated, but basically none of them fell in the hands of their enemies. So, he says, שהוא הנחש הזה כדכתיב היה השם עם השופט והושיע מאויביהם כל ימי השופט. Because Hashem promised that he will guarantee the life of the judge. So how come that he was killed? והוא היה האחרון לשופטים. He was the last judge. But after him we have what? שמואל. כי שמואל נביא היה. ולא נלחם להם. Even though Shmuel was also considered as a shofet, as a judge, but really his main mission was a navi and a teacher. ובימיו מלכו המלכים, and at his time there was Shaul and David. וכאשר ראה הנביא תשועת שמשון כי נפסקה, so after Yaakov saw that after Shimshon, not only that he didn't really save the Jewish people entirely, but also he fell in the hands of his enemies, אמר לישועתך קיוויתי השם. לא לישועת נחש ושפיפון, כי בך אבשה לא בשופט, כי תשועתך תשועת עולמים. This is one of the most anti-Zionistic message, which means when Yaakov saw that Shimshon fell, he basically says, from now on, I don't trust that Geulah will come through a warrior, a judge, but rather לישועתך קיוויתי השם. From now on, I only trust God that you will bring the Geula. So, I had to bring this commentary, even though I not exactly agree, but it's interesting, because why is it that Shimshon fell in the hands of his enemies, and that's what Yaakov saw, and that's why he prayed, Yeshuatcha kiviti Hashem. After Shimshon is dead, there is no Yeshua anymore. Answer is, he was the last judge, and from now on, the people, understand that the only one who can save us is God. Okay. So that's what the Ramban says. So now, take a look at the Midrash Bamidbar Rabbah. It says that Manoach, Shimshon's father, was מממשפחת הדני, from the family of Dan. לפי שצורעה היה ליהודה, כדכתיב אשתאול וצורעה ואשנה, וצורעה היה לדן. ויהי גבול נחלתם צרעה ואשתאול. So therefore he wants to say, which is very interesting, this Midrash says that when it comes to the territory, when the territory was split, basically Shevet Yehuda and Shevet Dan were neighbors. And they basically have a common border, like a border that basically a shared border. And therefore, לפיכך, צריך לפרש, שהיה ממשפחת הדני, אינו אומר משבט, אלא ממשפחת הדני. Until now we said that Shimshon came from what form? Shevet Dan. Says the Midrash, it's not from Shevet Dan, not from the tribe of Dan, from the Mishpachat Hadani, from the family of Dan. What does that mean? So he says, Aviv midan, ve'imo shel Manoach miYehuda. So he was from Dan, but his grandmother was from Yehuda. By the way, who else has like a mixed marriage that we know?
David.
Someone who is really,
Judah.
will be very familiar with him in the next Chag. Mordechai. He is from where? From Binyamin and from Yehuda. That's what the Gemara describes, yeah? That each Shevet says blamed each other for Mordechai's faults. So basically, ועל זה אמר יעקב דן ידין עמו כמיוחד שבשבטים זה יהודה לכך הקישו ליהודה שמארץ יהודה היה ואמו הייתה מיהודה וכן מנוח היה מדן ואשתו הייתה מיהודה נמצא שמשון בא משבט דן ומשבט יהודה. So why is that so important to me to know that Shimshon came from both? Oh, because we want to connect Shevet Dan and Shevet Yehuda together. So we already connected them in the way they encamped, and according to the Midrash, it's also in the way that they dwelled in the land of Israel. Okay. Kam Reb Tzadok, and he says the following. This is really relevant to our parsha. ועל כן נתחברו יהודה ודן במלאכת המשכן והמקדש. Who are the architects of the Mishkan? בצלאל בן אורי בן חור למטה יהודה והאוליאב בן אחיסמך למטה דן. Did you pay attention to that one?
Yes.
Yes. What did you make out of it?
Once again, front and back.
Yeah. So basically what do you have? You have an opportunity to build a Mishkan, which is the place of the divine presence to dwell, and you need to have these two tribes, Yehuda and Dan. And then he said, וכן לעתיד עם משיח. When it comes to Mashiach, כמו שמבואר בזוהר, כי כנסת ישראל, this idea, this concept of כנסת ישראל, נקרא על שם יהודה, it names after יהודה, שהוא המבורר שכולם כנסייה שלמה, אין בהם פסולת ולא יידח מהם נידח, וזנבה דאריה אריה הוא. This is a Zohar. My understanding of Zohar is pretty limited, but I will try my best. The Yehuda is a lion. The tail of the lion is also a lion. Right? If you see a tail of a lion, what do you see in front of you? Not a tail. You see what? You see a lion. You don't want to try to pull the lion, the tail to see what's behind, what's in the front. Right? You don't want to mess with it. You understand that there is a lion there. Basically, Yehuda was able to what? To bring the berur, to clarify what is Knesset Israel. And then he says, Dan שנקרא גור אריה כי יהודה וזנבה דאריה.
He was the tail of the lion. That's why he was in the back.
Very good. What we say, הווה זנב לאריות ולא ראש לשועלים, be a tail for lions rather than a head to the foxes, that was Dan. Dan is a מאסף לכל המחנות, but don't forget, he is still the tail of a lion. And now, he says something about Amalek. אשר עמלק חשב לזנבו ולא עלה בידו דגם הוא אריה. Because don't forget, Moshe blessed Shevet Dan also as what? As Gur Aryeh. Also, what does it say? Dan Gur Aryeh is Zanek Min HaBashan. So he's also a lion. And what does it mean he's a lion? There's only one lion, there are not two lions. He is the tail of the lion. But he's also a lion. And therefore, when Amalek came along and attacked us, and it says what? Vayezanev becha. What is Vayezanev? Zanav, a tail. Okay? So he tried to attack the tail, thinking that the tail is not connected. That means what? That even a most distant Jew, who doesn't even think he's Jewish, he does not know that what? He is connected to the tail. So then, he says, כמיוחד שבשבטים זה יהודה שישבנו. So he continues, Rab Tzadok continues with another aspect to it, and he says, הרע שונא את הטוב, ואין חושב להידבק בו כלל. Evil hates good, and it has no desire to attach himself to him. וכידוע מה שאמרו, אין ארור מדבק בברוך. That someone who is cursed cannot glue himself, cannot cement himself to someone who is blessed. That was said about whom? Do you remember? אין ארור מדבק בברוך? Eliezer, נכון מאוד. When Eliezer had a daughter, and he wanted her to marry Yitzchak, and Avraham says to him, I'm very sorry, you are a great guy, but ארור לא מדבק בברוך. You should expect that what? That there will be a continuation to the sentence, which is, וברוך לא מדבק בארור. And someone who is blessed does not attach himself to someone who is cursed, but it's not. It doesn't say that. It only says the half, the first half. Eliezer, because he was from Canaan. And Canaan was cursed by Noach. Thanks for the clarification. רק שהארור אין רוצה, ואף דשם אליעזר רצה, היינו לפי שהיה מוכן לצאת מכלל ארור לכלל ברוך. רגע, oh, I understand. Okay. And so, but with Eliezer, we know that he wanted to attach himself to Avraham, so why he was rejected? So answer is, because it was just not the right time, in the right place. Okay, what can you do? ובתחילת הליכתו התחיל גם כן דבר זה דיציאתו לברוך, ועל כן הרגיש קצת מזה, ומכל מקום לא רצה לזה בהתגלות, כי עדיין היה ארור מצד ההתגלות. Okay, so I'm not going to go into all of that. I want to go a little bit further. I'm skipping a bit. Do you see it? Turn to page 3, the fourth line. ואשת פוטיפר. Do you see אשת פוטיפר? So basically, Rab Tzadok starts with what? He wants to show that someone who is cursed cannot attach himself to someone who is blessed. So, Eliezer, he was cursed, he wanted. Basically he wants to say that Arur does not want to. He wanted, but it didn't work. Second one, אשת פוטיפר. What with אשת פוטיפר? אמרו ז"ל דראתה בהצטגננות שיישא ביתה והיה לה שייכות. Why do you think אשת פוטיפר wanted Yosef so much? So the narrative is that, look, he was a handsome guy, 17 years old, you know. The Midrash says that she saw in her prophetic vision, or whatever prophecy, that she will have a daughter, she will have a descendant from him. And she thought that she should be the mother. But rather it was really her daughter who was married later on to Yosef. ובפרעה שטבע לה מילדות לדבר עבירה ומיוחבת ומרים, נראה לפי שמשה רבינו עליו השלום קיבל גרים וערב רב ממצרים, וממרים יצא דוד ומשיח דנערו אליו עמים רבים, דיבוא רק לתת מצוות לאומות, ומצד זה היה לו גם קצת שייכות להם. So now he brings biblical figures that they try to do something which it seems to be odd, but they did it because they have a little bit of a שייכות. Some kind of what? Of connection, identification with the other. But they were wrong in their calculation. So Eshet Potiphar, she had something to do with Joseph. He is going to be really her son-in-law, but not her husband. Okay? According to the Midrash, Paro wanted to have relationships with Miriam and Yocheved, the Me'aldot. And they said no. And why? Because who came from, because of Yocheved and Miriam? Moshe. And Moshe has something to do a little bit with the Egyptians. The Midrash says that he accepted all the Gerim and all the Erev Rav, all the people, the common people, even from Egypt, that came and joined the Jewish people. And according to many Midrashim, they led Chet HaEgel. That's the Erev Rav. Okay? That mixture of people. So we see that there's something very interesting, that sometimes what they call opposite attracts, right? That basically when you have opposite people on different opposite attract, so basically you have that people did something that it's strange, but it's because they have some kind of a shayachut, of identification with the other. And now, ואותם שנתחברו באמת, כשלמה ושמשון, וכן אחשוורוש ואסתר, ושכם עם דינה, וזמרי עם כוסבי, ויעל עם סיסרא.
That was a connection.
Oh, that was a connection.
She enticed him.
Take a look at that. Now we have a list of people who got connected even though they should be totally separate. So let's go over it. Shlomo with those wives. A lot of wives. Shlomo with all 1,000 women. I mean, 300 wives and 700 concubines or vice versa. And most of them were what? Not Jewish. Shimshon. And then Achashverosh and Esther. Shechem with Dinah. Zimri ben Salu, who was the head of the tribe of Shimon with Kosbi. And Yael im Sisra. So how can I explain that they got really connected? ודאי היה להם שייכות שהיה איזה ניצוצי קדושה ברע ההוא שהיה חושק להידבק בקדושה השייכת לו. I'll try to explain that. That's a little bit of above my pay grade. It's בכל זאת את רב צדוק, but I'll try my best. I think we all have sometimes an experience. You go to a room, you see someone, and you have immediate chemistry. The guy, you don't know the guy, you don't know the person. He doesn't even talk to you yet, but you already feel what? Some kind of connection. There are many psychological explanations to that. There are many spiritual explanations to that. However, if you see someone or you talk to someone that you have zero connection and you don't feel any attachment to him, you're not going to talk to him. Shimshon and those wives, or Shlomo with those wives, what kind of a connection they have? I don't know if I gave you a shiur about Shlomo. Did I give you a shiur about Shlomo Melech?
Yes.
I did. Here, no? Yeah. That's what I remember. So Susie remember. So we spoke about the idea that Shlomo saw an incredible opportunity. Because he was so wise, he thought that by marrying all those women, he will basically convert all of them, and they will convert their families, and they will convert all their societies, and the entire world will reach the level of what? Yakiru v'yed'u kol yoshvei tevel kedecha tichra kol berech tishava kol lashon. He is going to what? To bring the world to tikkun olam maleh.
Big mistake.
Yeah. Even though he was so smart, sometimes his wisdom basically went against him. Shimshon also used them in order to fulfill his divine mission. Now, I will tell you something that I saw many years ago, which I don't know exactly yet what to do with it, but I think it's very interesting. So let's digress for a second. This guy, Zimri ben Salu, you remember him? The head of the tribe of Shimon?
Yeah.
He took Kozbi Batsur and he did a totally inappropriate thing with her. Pinchas came, killed him. Okay. The Talmud brings a very interesting story about Rabbi Akiva. Torah, who was that Roman general at that time, he put Rabbi Akiva in jail. And he said, you know what, I am going to show everyone that this Rabbi Akiva, it's not what they thought. It's not what they think. He's not righteous, he's not pious. I have a wife, my wife, says Torah, she's beautiful. No man could resist her. I'm going to put her in the same cell with Rabbi Akiva. So, she's trying her magic, and Rabbi Akiva does not respond. So, after a while, she gets frustrated. And she knocks on the little gate and she said, get me out of here, this guy is crazy. So, they took Rabbi Akiva out as well. And he smiled, he cried, and he spit. So she looks at him and she said, you are crazier than I thought. Can you explain to me, you saw me, and you had no desire to be with me, and now you spit, you cry, and you laugh. I mean, what's going on with you? So he said to her like that, I spit because I know where you came from, like everyone else, okay? I cried because after your death, your beauty will die with you. And I smiled because I'll tell you later. She got intrigued. And what did she do according to Chazal? Take a guess, no? She converted to Judaism. And she married Rabbi Akiva. And he told her, that's why I smiled. Because you're going to be my wife. Okay. בסדר, רגע. 1 second. The story does not end there. Then, Rabbi Akiva, we know the way he died, was tortured to death. And Chazal say that the way he was buried was that like an angel came, put him in a cave, put him on a bed. It was not the angel, it was Eliyahu Hanavi who came, put Rabbi Akiva on his bed, and basically that's how he buried him. Now, the interesting part is that Cosbi, the princess, the Midianite princess, according to the Zohar, now how am I going to say it without telling you how much I believe in it or not? Okay, she has the neshama of Dinah. You remember Dinah? And Shechem? Now, there is something very interesting in that pasuk. When Shechem saw Dinah, and in many psukim, it says, Chashka nafsho bedinah bat Yaakov. Nafsho? What is nafsho?
What is hashka?
Soul. His soul, his nefesh, his neshama.
What's hashka?
Chashka, desired. You can say, my eyes desired, my heart, my neshama desired her. So basically from the get-go, and that falls into Reb Tzadok Milublin, you can get it, you can accept it, you cannot accept it, I don't really care, but I think it adds a dimension to the story of Shimshon. Basically, Shechem had some kind of an inclination or some kind of tendency towards Kedusha. But he didn't know how to put it into place. So what does he do? He sees another neshama, Dinah, and he takes her. By the way, Dinah did not beg to get out of there at all. How do we know that? Her brothers had to take her. Vayikchu et Dinah achotam vayelechu. And according to the other midrash, she basically made them promise her that one of them will marry her. And who was that? Shimon. Now take a look. There are no problems, brothers and sisters. That's fine. Back then, it was before Matan Torah. So basically, what do we have? Again, Shimon is the one to marry Dinah after this desecration. So Reb Tzadok says that Cosbi, this Midianite princess, she was somewhat of this neshama of Dinah, and Zimri comes from Shevet Shimon, and he's making a mistake. Unlike his ancestor Shimon, who saved Dinah from Shechem, he goes into the midst of the Midianites and does whatever he do. Who killed Cosbi and Zimri? Pinchas. Who is Eliyahu? Pinchas. How many people were killed because of what Cosbi did? 24,000.
Wow.
Is that number means anything to you? How many students Rabbi Akiva had? 24,000 students, which it might be an exaggeration, might be not, but whatever it is. So the idea is, now again, you can accept it and you can reject it. I'm not really, I don't have any gain in it, but I think it adds an interesting dimension. The dimension of one of the things that really bothered us from the get-go, from the first shiur on Shimshon. How can you explain that there is a judge in Tanakh whose entire marriage life was only with non-Jews?
Non-Jewish woman.
By the way, same thing with Shlomo HaMelech. Okay? Now, he did other things too, but he built a Beit HaMikdash. Okay, Shimshon didn't do it. But the thing is that also, how do I view them? What Reb Tzadok says is that it's not just because they gave up or they gave into their desires. there was some kind. Now it might be a justification, but there is some kind of an attractiveness to what we call nitzotzot kedusha, something holy in someone, and they thought that they can fix him. Now I will add one more thing, which is interesting, that most of the times, for example, Esther and Achashverosh. Okay, what kind of a nitzotzot kedusha Achashverosh had? I mean, the guy was crazy.
Not to submit.
No.
His son, Koresh. He gave the second permission to continue the avodot. There was a Koresh number 1 that was before Achashverosh, or Daryavesh. We have like a mix of names there. But he gave permission for the Jews to build the Bet HaMikdash. Then there was a Ktav Sitna that was written by Haman and others to stop the constructions. They stopped it. And then the son, Esther's son, gave the second permission. So basically what do we have here? So there was something in Achashverosh that basically Achashverosh was a kli. So I cannot deny it. I might not be in love with it, or I cannot rationalize it, but I can understand and cannot deny the idea that there is some kind of a nitzotzot kedusha, sparks of holiness. By the way, bichlal, in Hasidut and in Kabbalah, the idea of galut, of exile, it's also part of this idea, which means when a Jew goes somewhere, he takes with him, you can see in all the Hasiduyot, all Sifrei Hasidim, they talk about what? That you take the what? The nitzotzot kedusha, those sparks of holiness from everywhere in the space, and then when that space becomes sparkless, it's gone. It's gone.
The Kedusha is gone.
When the Kedusha is gone, the place falls apart. I love history. Just look at every country that was not nice to Jews or expelled them. Did they become wealthier, better?
They're extinct.
New York is now. Look about history. Rome, okay. Spain, Germany, England, France,
Russia.
all of them, basically, when they did not, many of them invited Jews back. Yeah, Britain is a great example. What is that, 17th century they invited them back? Yeah. They were expelled in 1290. Took them, 500 years. English people are a little slow. So the thing is, it took them almost 500 years to get them back. And now they also have issues with them. The idea is, and again, it's not about, I'm good. It's just the idea of that we believe that Kedusha is the basis for everything. Everything that is lasting needs to have some kind of Yesodot Kedusha. I will tell you one thing. The Midrash, it's a Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. Just because of the events that we have, says that Bnei Ishmael also has a right on Eretz Israel.
That what?
They also has a right. Bnei Ishmael, the Ishmaelites, the Muslims. They also have a right on Medina, on Am Israel, on Eretz Israel. And why? Because of Brit Milah. Now, they don't do what we do. They don't do Priya. And the Priya is to uncovering the skin. Because we uncover the skin, we also have a greater right. But they also have a right. And until that right will empty, they will still have a claim on Eretz Israel.
What's going to happen?
If I would know how to answer that question,
Then you'll be staying
believe me, I will not give a shiur here.
It would be a navi.
So this is the idea. So they have, and what's behind it? Is that we understand that if someone has a control or have some kind of a privilege over someone, he has a right. I'll give you another example. When Moshe saw Og, Melech HaBashan, he was terrified. Not because Og was a giant. It's because of what? The Midrash says it. Because Og has a zchut. He was the palit, he was the refugee from the Mabul. He told Abraham later on about Lot. So because of that, Moshe was afraid that maybe there is a spiritual merit for Og, so he will not be able to defeat him. Give me another example. Yaakov, when he came back to Israel, he was afraid of Esav. Why? Bizchut Kvod Abba. Yaakov was not here for 22 years, and who respect his parents? I mean, at least his father, Esav. So he was afraid that spiritual merit will what? Will protect them and will defeat us. If anyone here thinks that the war that's going on is, it's not a spiritual, I mean, obviously there is an active physical war, but the root of this war, it's a spiritual. There is no question. And not only here, in the entire world. It's evil against good. It's purity against total tum'ah. And they fight kedusha. And I'm not trying to become a prophet or something like that or a mystical guy. This is just simple. This is very simple that you see it. Everyone who reads the narrative can see it. You don't need to be Shlomo HaMelech. So let's continue with one more. Says Reb Tzadok, Israel Kedushim, page 3 in the middle, where it says Reb Tzadok Melublin, Israel Kedushim Ot Hei. Yes? Good. וזה עיקר חילול הקדושה. This is the main part of the desecration of holiness. כמו שנאמר, כי חילל יהודה קודש השם. That Yehuda desecrate the holiness of God. על לקיחת הנשים הנוכריות. When the Jews came back from Bavel, many of them did what? Intermarried. And that was something that Malachi says to them, you desecrated the name of God. שזה בא לעשות דיבוק בין דברים נבדלים. ומסיר ההבדל שבין קודש לחול וחילול. ומכל מקום בישראל באמת אין דבר מלבר. ושבט, I will explain in a minute. ושבט דן עצמו הוא המאסף לכל המחנות אותן שפלט הענן להחזירם אל הקודש. So שבט דן had a very special mission. He was at the end, and everyone who didn't behave, the anan, the cloud, spit him out. Who brought them back? Dan. Dan was like the first Keruv organization. Okay? He will bring the people back after the anan spit them out. כאשר נתברר משמשון דעתי מדן והלך אחר עיניו לקחת מבנות פלישתים הערלים בטענה כי ישרה בעיניי. What does it mean ישרה בעיניי? בתר ישרותו. He thought that that's the right thing to do. To reach out to the other, which is really the other, and to try to what? To bring them back. אף על גב דמכל מקום תחילת קלקולו נחשב בעזה, ההוא לא היה קלקול עדיין. והיינו שהוא הכיר בנפשו כי עיניו נקיים בחיזו דעלמא להיות העין רואה ולב חומד דבר שאינו שלו. Which means Shimshon viewed himself as someone who can reach, quote unquote, to the dark side. And to be able to what? To basically not only to influence, to take them out from the dark side and to bring them to what? To the light. Now this is interesting because you have others who were afraid of it. Yonah, for example, was sent to what? To the dark side to bring them to the light, and he was afraid. He ran away. Shimshon not only did not run away, what did he do? He ran towards it because he thought he is so strong and he has this talent. He was a Nazir. He grew up into what we will call holiness. He felt he has this power to do it. But he didn't.
But it was not his destiny, Rabbi. Already Yaakov, as you explained, predestined to proclaim, you cannot redeem the people. Your job's only up to this much.
Yeah, but I'm sure if he knew it or not, he felt like very much like Shlomo HaMelech, that he can reach out to the further, not only Jew, but a further person, and to bring them under the wings of God. Which, on one hand, it's a wonderful thing. On the other hand, if it doesn't work, it's a disaster. Shlomo HaMelech, one of his most favorite wives was the Egyptian princess, Bat Paro. And the Midrash, it's based on the narrative. It took him, if I'm not mistaken, 7 years to build the Beit HaMikdash. It took him, I think, 11 years to build her the little palace. And also because she had to have her morning beauty sleep, so he will not open the gate of Yerushalayim, so there was no noise until she wakes up, a geveret. So, and then Yerovam was very upset with it, which means it influenced him. And I'm not saying that, the Tanakh said it. That lo haya levavo shalem kelevav David aviv bidvar hanashim asher hitu et levavo. His heart was not as perfect as David's heart. Why? Because of those women who basically deviated his heart. You know what the Gemara says on that pasuk? With that I will conclude and we will continue Bezrat Hashem next time. Shlomo HaMelech begged God to erase that verse. That his heart was not as perfect as David's heart because of his wives. He says, I would prefer to be menake bivim, to clean a, what do you call it, a biyuv, a sewer, okay? To clean up sewers, and not to be named forever as a fool, who those wives caused me to deviate. So again,
In the Torah, you can't have those wives. How do you think?
oh, so that's what I'm saying. He thought, no, they says the Torah says you can't marry someone who is not Jewish. How can Shlomo do it?
No, but many wives also.
The many wives. So Shlomo allowed himself to do whatever he wanted. He increased his amount of horses and gold and women. He says, I will do it and nothing will happen. And obviously things happen. The idea is that sometimes when you are too smart or you believe in yourself too much, you will fail. Now when will be that time that you can really bring everyone? No. Bezrat Hashem. Okay, that's for today.